What's up, everybody? This is Zachary with the Independent Restoration Professionals, and I just want to take a minute and talk a little bit about mold remediation. Not necessarily the process and the protocol that we do when we remediate mold or remove mold, but more so the products and the chemicals that we use during this service. Now, there are a lot of different chemicals out there, and if COVID was good for anything, it was great for opening at least my eyes to the number of N-list disinfectants, right? Quaternary disinfectants and products that were out there and available just outside of my little restoration bubble of Benefect or what is it? Aftershock or whatever it's called, Shockwave. I don't know. Anyway, I digress. We found some really great products that we use on a daily basis now that work just as good, if not better, than some of the other sanitizers or disinfectants that we used prior. So with that said, I'm always on the lookout for new and different and innovative, frankly, products that we can use and incorporate in our day-to-day business. I'm more likely to try new than stick to the old regime. So with that said, when we do a remediation, we typically like to stick with peroxide. And I'll be very upfront about that. I'm a big fan of the 20% peroxide with accelerator and the agitation, the HEPA vacuuming, the following up with the sanitization. I like that process and I like that model, not necessarily because it works well, but more so because it can be instituted in a regime for my, or protocol for my employees to follow, right? So whether they go into a basement or an attic or a bathroom, they know roughly what steps that they need to follow and what products and chemicals they need to use at which points to be successful in that remediation. And there's a bunch of checks and balances along the way. But with that said, we found a new one. If you couldn't tell, I'm rocking some merch, right? and I appreciate you guys. Thanks, Dot, for sending me some merch. The hat is pretty fly. I like the shirt. You sent me a pretty comfy hoodie. Although today is one of the first 80-degree days in my area, so I don't know how long I'll have to wear that thing. But yeah, I want to give it a shot, and I want to show you guys in comparison how well this works in comparison to some of the other products. Now, it is different. And different is not always worse or better. Different is different. So if there is some benefits to this particular chemical, and I'm not pushing this chemical, wasn't paid to put this on, although I am rocking some cool merch. I will happily rock some MMR, RMR merch as well. Some serum merch if they want to send me some of that. Happy to do it. But yeah, I mean, listen, the shirt is comfortable, and like I said, I like the hat. I digress. I'm making this video though because of Dot, and the reason is they're doing something that I haven't seen yet in this industry, which is essentially, this is the product. Now, this is 1 gallon. This is comparable, hold on, to this. 1 gallon, 1 gallon, 1 gallon, 1 gallon. Now, if you guys use MMR or RMR, any of the sodium hypochlorite products, and you're driving and some of that spills, whew, man, it reeks, and it really makes breathing difficult in the vehicle. And I know you're supposed to strap up and this and that, but even sometimes when we have bags of debris and they're tied off and they're goosenecked, we still get some odor through that, and it's foul, right? With this, there's no risk. There's no spillage. If this spills, I don't know if you can hear that. Shake, shake, shake. It's a powder, and it's not ready to use until it's mixed, right? So it says mix 1 pouch plus 1 gallon of water and treat up to 300 square feet. So this does 300 square feet. Opposed to a gallon of MMR. And the reason I'm not doing a comparison per se with, you know, Dot and MMR, this is just what I had on the shelf. But this also says, let me see here, I can look it up. I'll write it right here. All right, so MMR treats up to, square feet. Dot does square feet. And yeah, so anyway, so that's a general comparison between the two. Now, Dot does say it's a cleaner. And to agitate, they sent me a pretty cool packet. So here's the other one, right? So they sent me this as well. So this is a gallon. You can see how kind of meaty and beefy it is. This one is a quart. So it comes in half quarts as well. And this is honestly enough to throw in a glove box and just to have on the truck during, you know, the normal course of a water mitigation. If you run into some discoloration, you have something to hit on the truck. But basically it says mix 1 Dot pouch with 1 gallon of water. Hot water is preferred. Fully dissolve product to form a solution. Spray to moldy surface, agitate, or reapply for heavy staining. Now it says dilute oxidation technology is activated when mixed with water. So water is the activator. The entire amount should be used within 1 hour after mixing the entire pouch with water for best results. For additional mixing instructions, you can go to their website. Now, I want you to keep in mind that if I wanted to mix a half gallon and whatever, on the website it states that to make the product stronger, you can actually reduce the amount of water and increase, basically increase the amount of powder, you know, that you add into the water, right? So reduce the amount of water, which by default increases the amount of product, and it becomes a stronger solution. Hot water seems to be key. And then the other thing that I've learned just from mixing this stuff up is that the product really needs time to dissolve. And if you don't allow it to dissolve, then you're wasting product. So what I did was I have a piece of wood here that's a little beat up. We didn't test it. I'm not sure that there's mold on there, but I know what will happen when I hit this with MMR, and I want to see what will happen when I hit it with Dot. And then we're going to mix in a little serum CU to see what the peroxide does in terms of taking the color out or just kind of changing the aesthetics of the wood from a visual standpoint, right? So we're going to do that. And then the other thing that I want to do is I just want to talk briefly about PPE. So PPE is the same PPE for this as it is as the sodium hypochlorite. So this isn't sodium hypochlorite. I should mention that. This is actually calcium hypochlorite, and I believe it's sodium deca. Give me 1 second. Let me go check. Right. All right. So it's calcium hypochlorite and sodium dodecyl sulfate. I'll write it right here. All right. And then there's some proprietary stuff too. But the idea is it is an oxidizer, right? But from what I've read, it basically, the molecule basically detaches and attaches to, it steals the oxygen, just like any other chemical, essentially, right? Like there's a whole molecular aspect to this that I really, I guess I don't want to kind of get into that right now because it's, I feel like if I did, I would have to get into MMR and I'd have to get into peroxide, and then it would just change the aspect of this video. So let's bypass the whole molecular thing. Let's just say it is an oxidizer, although it's not as strong of an oxidizer as like a peroxide or a sodium hypochlorite. So let's get into mixing this. Let's see how that breaks down, and then we're gonna treat the wood and go from there. So let's go check out Dot versus MMR and Serum CU.
All right, so I had to post this camera up a little differently, but I wanted to show how we're gonna mix this up. So we're gonna mix up and make a quart. This is one pouch is 16 ounces of water, treats up to 37 square feet. That should be plenty for what we're doing today. We also have my handy dandy measuring cup, right? So this is 1 quart. It's got our 16 ounce measurement right here. And then according to Dot, they say that to use hot water. So we're gonna start with the hot water. We're gonna turn that on, let that run for a minute, get nice and toasty. And we're gonna fill this up, mix it up, and then go from there and see how it works. Before we apply this, I just want you guys to take a look and see what it is this looks like. I don't know if you guys can see that or not, but it's like little pellets.
All right, to make it easy, we're gonna leave MMR on this side of the wood. We're gonna leave dot on this side of the wood. And then it goes MMR, dot, MMR, dot, serum CU on the end. So MMR, dot, serum CU. We're gonna do application, application, scrub, scrub, and then we're just gonna apply the serum CU and see what happens. All right, let's dive in. All right, so first things first, we're gonna apply the MMR. See what happens. Got some nice color change. All right. Oh, let's leave that over there like we said we were going to. And then I'm gonna grab a rag. Just kind of let that dwell. Now we're gonna go with the dot. Do the same. All right. Let's make sure this goes like that. Let's just rub that off. Beautiful. Now we're gonna do the MMR again. This time we're gonna give it a little bit of agitation. Don't really need to use too much of this. We'll spread it around with the brush. Not much. Don't want to go too crazy. And then we're going to do the same with dot. Apply the dot. Do a little bit of agitation. Now, it may look like from your angle that I'm applying more product than I actually am for the dot, because for some reason this spray bottle just is not working very well. So I'm really not applying too much product. Do a little 1-2 scrub action. Again, let it sit. Just to make things fair, we're gonna scrub MMR one more time. Spray it down, let it sit. And then let's go get the serum CU. See what that looks like. All right. There you go. A little bit of serum action. Bada bing, bada boom. All right, so there you have it. You have serum CU, dot, MMR, dot, and MMR. All right, so here we are about an hour later, and I wanted to give it time to dry before we started to take a look at the results and make some comparisons. Now, I'm gonna offer a quick close-up to the results, so that way you have an opportunity to see. We're gonna do one of my favorite things and remove the tape. And then from there, we're gonna talk a little bit about some of the differences that I experienced that you may not be aware of watching this. So let's get into it and take a closer look at some of these results. All right, we have our MMR and dot with just the application, no scrubbing. Now we have our MMR scrubbing, dot that we scrubbed, and finally the serum CU. Let's zoom out so you guys have a better idea overall of what's going on. All right, let's do one of my favorite things after a test like this, and let's remove the tape. All right, so remember, this is dot. You see I have a before and an after. This is your serum, your dot, and your serum. So it doesn't not work, like it absolutely works, okay? All right, let's talk about this. All right, so there you have it. You just had your test between dot and MMR, and the results were staggering. The difference was immediately visible in the sense that you can definitely tell which product was applied where. I'm looking at the wood now, so I'm looking down, and I'm looking and I'm comparing the difference between the scrubbed MMR and the non-scrubbed MMR. I'm also looking at the difference between the scrubbed dot and the non-scrubbed dot. And so the scrubbed MMR versus the non-scrubbed MMR, there's very little difference, but there is a pretty significant difference between scrubbing the dot and the non-scrubbed dot. So if you are going to use this product, I highly recommend agitating once you apply the chemical. The other thing that I noticed is that as this dries, and it's not completely dry yet, but I'm noticing a residue, right, where we applied the dot. Now, as I'm looking at it, and I dumped and I cleaned out the bottle too. I wish I took a video or at least a photo of it, but there was a residue, almost like a powder, once it dried. And I went online and I looked it up, and it's the way that dot is packaged and used. So there's a chalk lime mixture. And for me, like on wood, it doesn't seem like a big deal. However, we're there to remove growth. Sometimes that can be a dusty, milky, white, chalky type. You know, sometimes we run into like Aspergillus penicillium, which has that consistency, or Cladosporium, which has that consistency sometimes. So I could see that as a potential red flag. The other thing is I don't want that to gunk up my sprayers when I'm using it. And again, online, I always rinse my sprayers after we use any kind of chemical or product, and I highly recommend that you guys do the same. So I don't see that as like a major issue, but it is something that shouldn't be ignored. Like it's real and it's factual. And if you're applying this product to a painted surface, you're doing the wrong thing anyway, right? Like if I don't know too many restorers that are going to treat a painted surface when they're doing a remediation instead of removing it, because you have to remove the root and drywall, and it's just a different video, different topic for a different time. But if you were to get that on a painted surface and it did dry into a chalky type consistency, you absolutely hands down have to HEPA-vac and remove that prior to paint. So that is everything that you should consider about this. Does it have some cool features? Yeah, absolutely. I think that the fact that we don't have to carry a jug of this stuff around and risk spilling it and breathing that in while we're driving, I think that that's huge. So I like the fact that there's a powder and you mix it on site. Do I trust my guys to mix it? Not necessarily, right? When we do carpet cleaning and it says 3 ounces per gallon, I'm guilty of it myself. That's 3 ounces right there. You know what I mean? So you got to be careful with your dilution ratio. The other thing is, you know, the way that it looks visually, I personally prefer. Don't get me wrong. Like, I think it did a great job. Next to MMR or something that's going to stain the wood, I don't personally like that look when it comes to remediation. I prefer like a more natural look to the wood when we're done. We're there to remove mold, not stain the wood or bleach the wood. So that I definitely can appreciate. And I do prefer the result over the MMR, especially when we're using a peroxide-based system predominantly for remediation. You know, you don't want to do 1,000 square foot, you know, exposed framing and joists, and then go back to touch up with something like MMR, where it's going to draw your eye to that section and make the rest look like, you know, you didn't do anything. So I do like that aspect of it. you know, it's definitely has I'm a firm believer that every chemical, every product has a place in the market. As a touch-up product, I think it definitely shows some promise. Will it replace my current remediation system? Probably not. And that's just being honest. Um, Overall, like transport and all that fun stuff, I definitely like it. And here's a huge bonus. And I don't know if the guys who are advertising this are pushing this fact enough, but the odor in comparison to a lot of these other chemicals, the MMRs, the RMRs, Flash AF, that was the name of the other chemical I was thinking of earlier, Flash AF. Um, anyway, in comparison to these products, this definitely has a less significant odor, which is awesome, right? We never really want to have to worry about the customer inhaling the product or not being able to aerate enough when we're done the remediation. So yeah, so I mean that's I don't know. I don't know. Overall, I don't feel like I can say that this is the product that we're gonna use every day. Like this is not our go-to for touch-ups. We might use it, we might explore it, but I mean it's got to be wiped down. You have to clean the sprayers out. Just that residue really got me messed up a little bit. You know, it's got me double thinking some of my original thoughts. I don't know. Out of a 10, 10 being, you know, the greatest product in the world, I think this sits at like a 5.5, 6, right? It needs work in my opinion. Does it do a good job? Yeah, I think it does a great job. I think there's a noticeable difference between the wood, you know, especially in comparison to like the MMR, the sodium hypochlorites. It's comparable to, you know, some of the lesser peroxides, as we saw in comparison to the serum Cu, which is I think like 10 or 11%. I'll put it right here. But yeah, man, I mean, it needs to be agitated. Absolutely has to be agitated to get the best result. It definitely takes longer for it to lighten up, but once it does, it looks clean. It looks like, you know, the way that you would want it or expect it to look. I think that having it dry is a big bonus. And overall, I think that it's a solid product, and it definitely has its spot in the market and in the industry. I just don't know where that is yet. It did take a little long for it to mix, right? For the powder to dissolve in the liquid. And the biggest reason why we probably wouldn't use this on a more regular basis is the shelf life is garbage, right? So we're going to mix this product and we have to use it almost immediately. And then online even, it says that you have 1 to 2 hours. Now in terms of a larger project, and I do multi-day mold remediation projects all the time, we're going to mix a product or get 4 gallons. Say we buy even the MMR, which again, we don't use a lot. Say we get 2.5, they come in 2.5 gallons. You can get a box, which is a 5-gallon thing, 2.5 and 2.5. When we're done that project on day 1, on day 2, we can still use that product. We don't have to remix it. We don't have to do anything to it. And it's going to be just as potent as it was the day we bought it, just as it was the day it was manufactured. And with this, you have an hour or 2. Then if you want to use it the next day, you have to mix another batch. You can add what you know from prior days. You can add that into the new batch, but you're not going to be able to use the original batch and the original product the following day standalone. And that to me is it's deal breaker. It's a huge deal breaker for me. I'm not going to spend all this money on a product that if my guys mix everything on day 1, all of a sudden I'm out. You know, yeah, I have to go get another product to use because this is already pre-mixed and it's done. So yeah, so there's a lot to consider. There's a lot of pros and there's a lot of cons. I think that for me is the biggest con, is the shelf life. Once it's mixed, it's just not stable. I think that's the biggest reason why, as a restorer, I wouldn't use it, or as a remediator, I wouldn't use it as my go-to. Now, to have a quart of it in my glove box, just in case, absolutely. And that honestly might be the best case, or the best use for this product, as like a touch-up fallback, you know what I mean, like last resort type. As bad as that sounds, that this might be perfect for that. And it could be like a safety net in case you're in a situation and you need to touch something up. That's honestly my God's honest opinion. I wish it was better. The results are what you would expect them to be. I just don't think it's practical in its current stage. And they might develop. They might make it better. And I hope you guys do. And I hope you don't take offense to this. This is just an honest review. And I want to thank you guys for sending me some swag and sending me some product. And I'm always interested in revisiting this. I think maybe it'd be pretty cool to get you on the phone and maybe do an interview or something, just kind of talk about the product and where it came from and how it was developed and what your vision for this product would be. But yeah, so anyway, this was just a simple test. We applied it to some wood next to another product to see how it did. I think it did really, really well. Honest, hands to God, I think it did really, really, really well. It exceeded my expectations. In the field, we did use this on a smaller project. In the field, it worked pretty well too. And yeah, and I hope, if nothing else, that this video really helps somebody kind of make a decision, or at least learn a little bit more about DOT. So thank you guys. I appreciate you watching it. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, follow. And if you have any questions, comments, anything at all, post it in the comment section. I'll do my best to get right back to you. If you guys have experience with this product, let me know. I'd love to hear, you know, what your experience was with it, and maybe there is something that along the way I might have missed or done wrong. Let me know. Let me know. Let me hear it. So again, like, share, follow, subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.